For over 3 decades, Jean-Claude Van Damme said almost nothing. No interviews, no rebuttals, not a word about Steven Seagal. But now, at 64, the silence is over. And what he just said? It isn't just shocking. It rips apart one of the biggest lies in action movie history. This isn't some PR stunt. This is the truth about the feud that defined an era. About what really happened at Stallone's mansion, the $20 million fight Seagal refused, and a dinner photo that sent the internet into meltdown. Van Damme didn't just break his silence. He exposed a legacy. And once you hear the full story, you'll never look at these two legends the same way again.
Who's the most legitimate Hollywood tough guy in your opinion? You accept it, of course.
When you say tough guy, do you mean martial artist or just tough guy?
I mean, Steven, for real. If it's that hard to think of a legit one.
Can you think of one?
In the early 90s, if you walked into any video store, 2 names practically screamed from the shelves: Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. They weren't just action stars, they were icons. Every kid with a VCR had to choose a side. Van Damme was the flashy technician, spinning through the air with elegant kicks and a sculpted physique that looked carved out of stone. His breakout film Bloodsport didn't just introduce him to the world, it became a martial arts cult classic. Then came Kickboxer, Universal Soldier, Time Cop. With each film, Van Damme wasn't just selling tickets, he was becoming a global phenomenon.
Thoughts on Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Can I laugh in your face?
But while Van Damme was flipping through the air and delivering emotional arcs with every punch, Steven Seagal was doing the exact opposite and still owning the screen. Seagal brought a colder, more controlled energy. No jumping, no theatrics, just brutal efficiency through Aikido, joint locks, wrist throws, and silent takedowns. His debut, Above the Law, introduced a new kind of hero. Deadpan, deadly, and completely unbothered. With Hard to Kill and Under Siege, he skyrocketed into Hollywood's elite. A Navy cook turned terrorist killer? Only Seagal could make that believable. On paper, these two should have been unstoppable together, but they never appeared at the same premieres, never posed for the same red carpet shots, never even exchanged compliments in interviews. Something felt off. Fans noticed it, but didn't have answers. Because even at the height of their fame, when studios were throwing scripts at them, Van Damme and Seagal stayed oceans apart. There wasn't just distance, there was tension. And deep inside Hollywood, behind the glamorous movie posters and blockbuster promotions, a Cold War was already brewing between these two titans. And only one of them knew it had started. It didn't start with a public insult. There was no tabloid headline, no shouting match on set. Steven Seagal's attack came in whispers, subtle, strategic jabs, dropped in interviews like poison. He never said Van Damme's name out loud. He didn't have to. When Seagal mocked actors who think ballet makes them fighters, everyone in the industry knew exactly who he meant. Jean-Claude Van Damme had trained in ballet as part of his martial arts regimen. He'd spoken proudly about it, explaining how ballet gave him balance, control, and strength. But Seagal twisted that. To fans who didn't know the details, the comment made Van Damme sound like a dancer pretending to throw punches. This wasn't a one-off dig. It became a pattern. Seagal would smirk in interviews, throwing shade at unnamed martial arts actors he didn't think were the real deal. And somehow, the target always looked like Van Damme, someone who flew through the air while Seagal stayed grounded, someone who showed emotion while Seagal barely blinked. The message was clear. Van Damme was flashy, theatrical, maybe even fake, and Seagal, he was the real killer. Industry insiders picked up on it immediately. Stunt coordinators, producers, fight choreographers. They saw the cold disrespect, and they knew it wasn't a misunderstanding. Seagal didn't just question Van Damme's fighting style. He questioned his manhood, and everyone behind the scenes could feel the tension starting to grow. But Van Damme, he stayed quiet. No rebuttals, no drama, not even a sly comment in return. To fans, it looked like he didn't care. But those inside Hollywood knew better. He heard it, he saw it, and he remembered every word. He just chose silence, at least for now. What Seagal didn't realize was that the silence wouldn't last forever. As the 90s rolled on, The tension between Van Damme and Seagal evolved into something strange. Not a feud, not a scandal. Something colder. The kind of quiet hostility you only recognize if you're in the room. Word spread across sets and studio lots. Don't schedule them at the same event. Directors knew to keep them apart. Crew members swapped stories about the tension in the air anytime their names came up together. It wasn't just professional rivalry, it was something more personal. And Hollywood insiders started calling it what it really was, a silent war. Seagal kept making his sly comments, still without naming names, still pretending like it was nothing. He'd hint that some martial artists were choreographed fakes, that some actors couldn't handle a real fight. And every time, the message hit the same mark. He was dragging Van Damme's name through the dirt without ever saying it out loud. It was calculated, it was smug, and it worked for a while. What made it even more surreal was Van Damme's response, or lack of one. He just kept working. More films, more training, more international tours. On the surface, he looked unaffected. To fans, it seemed like he was above it all. But people who worked with him noticed something different. Stuntmen and trainers said he would push harder during rehearsals when Seagal's name came up. Some even claimed he used that simmering disrespect as fuel. He didn't say anything, but he felt everything. Producers whispered that they could never have them in the same room. If they crossed paths, there'd be tension, maybe worse. And even though no punches were thrown, even though no cameras caught the drama, everyone around them knew. This wasn't just rivalry. This was personal. Two martial arts legends, two completely different ideologies, and zero middle ground. But everything changed one night. One house, one party, one moment that almost turned this silent war into an all-out brawl. It was supposed to be just another Hollywood night. Drinks, laughs, and legends catching up under the same roof. But what happened at Sylvester Stallone's mansion would go down as one of the most unforgettable moments in action movie history. Stallone wasn't just hosting any party. This was a gathering of the giants. Schwarzenegger, Willis, Seagal, Van Damme. It was the Mount Olympus of muscle. Stars who had carried entire decades on their shoulders, all under one roof. Everyone assumed egos would be checked at the door, but Steven Seagal didn't leave his at home. The night was buzzing with testosterone and nostalgia. Cameras weren't rolling, but everyone in that room knew this was a rare moment. Then, somewhere between casual drinks and war stories, Seagal started running his mouth again. This time, it wasn't cryptic. It wasn't quiet. It was direct, loud enough for Van Damme to hear. Again mocking ballet, again questioning what made a real fighter, again acting like Van Damme was just a movie gymnast in silk pants. But this time, Jean-Claude Van Damme was right there. This wasn't an interview. This wasn't a whisper behind his back. It was face to face. And Van Damme had had enough. Right there, in front of Arnold, Bruce, and Stallone himself, Van Damme stood up and stared Seagal down. No cameras, no script. Just raw tension and 30 years of pent-up restraint finally breaking. And with the kind of focus you'd expect from a trained fighter, Van Damme issued the challenge that fans had dreamed about for years. Let's go outside. No drama, no chest beating. Just an offer to settle it like real martial artists. Man to man. Outside. What happened next stunned everyone. Steven Seagal, the man who built his career playing unflinching, unbeatable, untouchable heroes, refused. He laughed it off, shrugged, pretended it wasn't worth his time. But no one in that room missed what just happened. It wasn't a movie. It wasn't a scene. It was the moment the mask slipped. Later that same night, Van Damme ran into Seagal again at a nightclub. Same challenge, same refusal. Twice, in one night, the man who'd been tossing silent insults for years backed away when it was time to face the consequences. No fight broke out. No fists were thrown. But everyone who mattered, Stallone included, got the message loud and clear. Van Damme was ready. Seagal was not. And that moment, witnessed by the biggest names in Hollywood, would come to define everything that followed. After that night at Stallone's mansion, the whispers stopped and the fantasy began. What if they actually fought? Not on a movie set, not with stunt doubles, A real fight. Jean-Claude Van Damme versus Steven Seagal. Martial arts cinema's ultimate showdown.
Why did
And
Steven
then,
Seagal have that
out of nowhere,
stone-faced, emotionless
it almost
look?
happened.
Was it just his usual
In the early
public
2000s,
appearance,
the
or
offer
was there
came.
tension behind that
Not
stare?
from a tabloid, not from some underground Fight Club promoter, but from Peter Guber, one of Hollywood's most powerful producers and former chairman of Sony Pictures. This wasn't a joke. It was a legitimate sanctioned fight proposal. Real gloves, real venue, real pay-per-view. No script, no editing, just two action icons in a ring. The payday? $20 million each. That wasn't hype. That was the deal on the table. The venue? The Mirage in Las Vegas, not some sketchy warehouse. This was the same stage that had hosted heavyweight boxing championships and million-dollar UFC showdowns. When the offer reached Van Damme, he didn't hesitate. "I said yes immediately," he later revealed. And of course he did. For Van Damme, this wasn't just about the money. This was closure, a chance to finally shut down the snickering, the ballet insults, the cowardice at Stallone's party. This was the moment to prove, once and for all, that he wasn't just a movie fighter, he was the real deal. But when the offer was sent to Seagal, silence. Not a maybe, not a let's negotiate, not even a polite decline, just silence. There was no statement, no explanation, no interest. It was as if the entire challenge vanished into thin air the second it hit his inbox. For Van Damme, and for everyone else in the industry, it was confirmation. The guy who had thrown jabs for years, who had built a reputation around being untouchable, simply disappeared when it was time to back it up. And the most unbelievable part? The world never knew. Back then, there were no viral TikToks or expose YouTube videos breaking this kind of story in real time. Social media was a whisper, not a megaphone. The entire $20 million fight offer remained buried behind closed doors, known only to a few insiders who dared to talk about it, until 2023, when Van Damme finally let the world in. And once the truth came out, fans couldn't believe what they had missed. Just when everyone thought the rivalry had gone cold, Jean-Claude Van Damme lit the fuse again. No announcement, no interview, just one photo. A single Instagram post in 2023 that left fans confused, stunned, and absolutely buzzing. In the picture, Van Damme and Steven Seagal sitting at the same table, having dinner, smiling. No explosions, no body doubles, just the two legends, side by side. And the caption? 4 words that sent shockwaves through the internet. Big announcement, coming soon. Fans lost their minds. Had they finally made peace? Were they teaming up for a movie? Was the long-lost $20 million fight finally back on the table? The theories spread like wildfire. Some said it was a documentary in the works, maybe a tell-all about their rivalry. Others thought it was a marketing stunt for an Expendable-style film, but not everyone bought it. A different group of fans took one look at the photo and said, "Something's off." And they had a point. There was no handshake, no arm around the shoulder, no genuine smiles. Van Damme looked polite, maybe even tense. Seagal's expression? Blank, unreadable, stone-faced like always. The framing of the photo raised even more eyebrows. Tightly cropped, with no other faces visible and no signs of a warm, lively atmosphere. Just two aging warriors at a table with a whole lot unsaid between them. Then came the detail nobody could ignore. It was Seagal's birthday dinner. So why did Van Damme post it? Why turn a private dinner into a public spectacle? Why tease a big announcement and then vanish? There was no video, no follow-up post, no behind-the-scenes footage showing laughter or bonding. Just that one cryptic photo and silence. Weeks passed. Nothing was revealed. And the longer fans stared at that image, the more it felt like a setup. Something staged, something off. The hype didn't fade. It got more intense, and all eyes turned back to Van Damme. If this dinner wasn't what it seemed, what was it really about? For years, Jean-Claude Van Damme stayed classy. While fans traded theories and Seagal tossed around cryptic jabs, Van Damme focused on his craft. He let the silence speak for him. But in late 2023, the silence ended. Not with a headline, not with a podcast, just a quiet, low-profile interview with a European martial arts magazine. No flash, no script. Just Van Damme and the truth. And in that calm, steady voice that once narrated training montages, he finally said it. He is a fraud. 3 words. No theatrics, no anger. But they hit like a knockout punch. Van Damme wasn't trying to start a war. He was ending one. With precision. He explained that this wasn't about a bruised ego or who sold more movie tickets. It was about something sacred, respect for martial arts. While Van Damme had bled in real tournaments, trained under real masters, and fought in full-contact arenas, Seagal had built a legend through something else. Stories, big ones. Claims of secret CIA missions, government operations, dangerous real-world battles where Seagal was supposedly a ghost warrior saving lives in the shadows. Van Damme didn't just challenge those stories. He dismantled them. He's never fought in a real tournament, he said. Not one. Never stepped into a ring like I did. And that's when the foundation cracked. Because for decades, Seagal's aura had been built not just on movies, but on myth. The mystique of a man who wasn't just acting like a killer, but supposedly was one. And here was Van Damme, calmly tearing down that entire persona. Then came the moment fans had waited years to understand. The truth behind the $20 million fight. Van Damme confirmed it all. The offer was real. The venue was booked. The money was on the table. Same deal for both of us, he said. I said yes. He didn't. No more speculation, no spin. Just confirmation. And when asked if he ever got a response from Seagal, just a shake of the head. The silence spoke louder than words. It was over. Not with fists, but with facts. And that photo, the one at Seagal's birthday dinner, that wasn't friendship. That wasn't reconciliation. That was observation. I wanted to see if he had changed, Van Damme admitted. He hadn't. For months, fans stared at that Instagram photo like it was a clue in a crime scene. 2 legends, 1 cryptic caption, 1 big unanswered question. Why now? Why post it? Why tease something that never came? And finally, Van Damme gave the answer. That dinner wasn't a reunion. It wasn't forgiveness. It was a test. I wanted to see if he had changed, Van Damme said. Simple, honest, brutal. The dinner came through mutual contacts, people in the martial arts world who thought maybe it was time to end the Cold War. Van Damme agreed, not because he wanted closure, but because he wanted clarity. After 3 decades of tension, silence, and denial, he just wanted to look Seagal in the eye and see who he really was. And what he saw? The same ego, the same stone wall, the same man who had once refused to back up his words with action. There was no warmth, no humility, no acknowledgement of what had happened between them. Just small talk and shallow gestures. The smiles in that photo? Forced. The dinner? Polite, but empty. And the caption, "Big announcement coming soon," wasn't hype for a movie or a fight. It was bait. A way to see if something real could finally come from decades of false starts. But it didn't. There would be no big movie, Van Damme said. No fight, no documentary, just closure, just truth. And that was it. No dramatic exit, no second round, just a quiet end to one of the most mysterious rivalries in Hollywood history. Van Damme didn't post again. Seagal didn't respond. And the silence? This time? It wasn't fear. It wasn't avoidance. It was final. The fight never happened. But the truth landed harder than any punch ever could. In the end, there was no knockout. No cameras. No final showdown in Vegas. But maybe there didn't need to be. Because what started as a Cold War between 2 action icons ended with something even more powerful: truth. Jean-Claude Van Damme never threw a punch at Steven Seagal. He didn't have to. He let time speak. He let facts rise. And when it mattered most, he told the story with quiet strength, not vengeance. While Seagal built a myth, Van Damme built a legacy. A legacy forged in real fights, real pain, and real respect for martial arts. And when he finally broke his silence, he He didn't do it to brag. He did it to set the record straight. For fans who spent decades wondering what really happened, now you know. It wasn't just a feud. It was a clash of principles. A story about image versus integrity, about silence and what it hides. And most of all, about two men who walked the same path but never saw eye to eye.